Hello, and welcome to another hour at the Golden Hour, which is a chance for you and me to do anything we want and do it together for 1 hour. I hope that this channel is here to provide companionship for you, and I hope that it is a source of worthy ideas. I think there are many worthy ideas in the book Sapiens that we have been reviewing at the beginning of each stream for a while, for many weeks. I think I only have about 9 or 10 pages left. Wow, it's been a journey. Truly, it's such a, as many people describe it, it's such a sweeping history of humanity that it really does feel like a journey. So I have hot chocolate again today, very happily. This could be a new habit. We'll have to see. It's great idea in my book. And so, yes, I am still trying to catch you all up from the reading I did over the break. I'm just trying not to talk longer than 20 minutes at the beginning, because 20 minutes is plenty. All right, so we're on chapter 18, A Permanent Revolution. Talking about the Industrial Revolution. Let's see. This first sentence I highlighted here says, "Our children's books, our iconography, and our TV screens are still full of giraffes, wolves, and chimpanzees, but the real world has very few of them left." Wow. Humankind really has taken over the world. Next paragraph begins, "Ecological degradation is not the same as resource scarcity." And I noted, I was thinking to myself in the first paragraph that it is, or it will be, if we can think ahead, but we're not so good at that. I think I was just thinking to myself, it isn't the same thing as resource scarcity yet. But it might get there. As we saw in the previous chapter, the resources available to humankind are constantly increasing and are likely to do so. That's why doomsday prophecies of resource scarcity are probably misplaced. So then I tend to swing more toward what he's saying. Whenever I do hear, particularly environmental doomsday prophecies, I do tend to have this feeling that goes something like, we're not really going to put ourselves in existential danger. Thinking, if it were really doomsday, we'd figure something out. We'd be acting differently if it were that bad. And maybe that bad just isn't near enough, and that represents a sort of foolishness on my part, which I was just acknowledging in the previous sentence when he was saying ecological degradation is not the same as resource scarcity. I thought, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Oh my goodness. It may not be right on our doorstep, but it's coming. But his point, which then kind of aligns with a different feeling I have, is we'll figure out how to make a different resource, probably. Okay, let's read this all together. Ecological degradation is not the same as resource scarcity. As we saw in the previous chapter, the resources available to humankind are constantly increasing and are likely to continue to do so. That's why doomsday prophecies of resource scarcity are probably misplaced. In contrast, the fear of ecological degradation is only too well-founded. The future may see sapiens gaining control of a cornucopia of new materials and energy sources, while simultaneously destroying what remains of the natural habitat and driving most other species to extinction. In fact, ecological turmoil might endanger the survival of Homo sapiens itself. Global warming, rising oceans, and widespread pollution could make the Earth less hospitable to our kind, and the future might consequently see a spiraling race between human power and human-induced natural disasters. My own notes kind of go through the same thing, like, oh, we're not really going to put ourselves in existential danger, but it might catch up with us. Essentially, will we get new resources in time? This is a bit of a nuance. So he's not at all trying to say anything along the lines of doubt in the ecological degradation. He's just saying linking it directly with resource scarcity may not be correct, that we may figure out other resources. But essentially, can we do that fast enough? And I think that that's a great representation of some of the tension I often feel around big statements about the ecological degradation that is happening, where I think, we're not really going to drive ourselves to extinction, are we? And part of me doesn't feel like, it feels like, oh, certainly it can't be that bad as a feeling I get. And I think it sort of stems from an idea that's kind of in here, like, we'll figure something else out, right? Like, even if we mess this up, it's not really going to be the end of the road, right? Can we do that in time? Another chapter says, still, the rumors of our own extinction are premature, and he's just talking about how much the population has increased. And I write, yes, I think the doomsday part could go. It's too far away for people to care. Predictions of things happening soon and then not erode the credibility of the movement's efforts. It is, however, still a good idea to care and take preventative measures. A stitch in time, after all. Is more perhaps how I would like to see the messaging. Because when we call it doomsday and then doomsday's not actively happening, I feel like that can be confusing messaging. But I think we should always point out, this is the road we're headed on. We can take preventative measures now, and taking a stitch in time really feels much different than getting to the point where you need the 9 stitches right away. Anyway. Excuse me. So the next session is called Modern Time. The first paragraph I bracketed and wrote, feel this. It says, while all these sapiens have grown increasingly impervious to the whims of nature, they have become ever more subject to the dictates of modern industry and government. The Industrial Revolution opened the way to a long line of experiments in social engineering and an even longer series of unpremeditated changes in daily life and human mentality. One example among many is the replacement of the rhythms of traditional agriculture with the uniform and precise schedule of industry. I think my favorite part of that is an even longer series of unpremeditated changes in daily life. These changes are happening before we can really think about whether we want their presence. And I do feel that as a person. Sometimes I feel myself going, wow, I have to participate in a system that I don't necessarily love all of, that I wish we could tweak. But it's like we're already 10 steps down the road before we're even having the conversation. And then the next paragraph appeals to the part of me that is easily tempted to romanticize things. Not that there's no value there, I'm just trying to balance it out. Traditional agriculture depended on cycles of natural time and organic growth. Most societies were unable to make precise time measurements, nor were they terribly interested in doing so. The world went about its business without clocks and timetables, subject only to the movements of the sun and the growth cycles of plants. There was no uniform working day, and all routines changed drastically from season to season. People knew where the sun was and watched anxiously for portents of the rainy season and harvest time, but they did not know the hour and hardly cared about the year. If a lost time traveler popped up in a medieval village and asked a passerby, "What year is this?" the villager would be as bewildered by the question as by the stranger's ridiculous clothing. Yes, there's definitely a part of me that just sighs at that and thinks, I wish our activities changed seasonally. What he says there. And all routines changed drastically from season to season. Cat fight under the table. I'm not sure that it's over. Oh, it's not over. Kitties. Moving up the stairs. On the landing. Ears are back. Up the stairs. Tails whipping. A détente. Will it last? Okay. In contrast to medieval peasants and shoemakers, modern industry cares little about the sun or the season. It sanctifies precision and uniformity. The Industrial Revolution turned the timetable and the assembly line into a template for almost all human activities. And then a bit of history I had no knowledge of. I've never even thought about how time became standardized. It said, in 1784, a carriage service with a published schedule began operating in Britain. Its timetable specified only the hour of departure, not arrival. Back then, each British city and town had its own local time, which could differ from London time by up to half an hour. When it was 12 in London, it was perhaps 12:20 in Liverpool and 11:50 in Canterbury. Since there were no telephones, no radio or television, and no fast trains, who could know and who cared? Love that. And then it talks about everyone got calibrated to Greenwich Observatory time. And I thought, oh, so that's how that got started. Finally, in 1880, the British government took the unprecedented step of legislating that all timetables in Britain must follow Greenwich. For the first time in history, a country adopted a national time and obliged its population to live according to an artificial clock rather than local ones or sunrise to sunset cycles. But again, it's not like one can't be connected to sunrise and sunset still. I think it's just the task of our age in many ways to develop these skills we don't have. Yes, we now have timetables. Yes, much of our life runs accordingly. And we don't have to lose connection with the natural world. The typical person consults these clocks several dozen times a day because almost everything we do has to be done on time. Yet all of these upheavals are dwarfed by the most momentous social revolution that ever befell humankind, the collapse of the family and the local community. Then he says, and their replacement by the state and the market. So I think he's talking about it as, well, here we go. As the family and community as the primary source of influence in your life. Influence and aid. Okay, prior to the Industrial Revolution, the daily life of most humans ran its course within three ancient frames. The nuclear family, the extended family, and the local intimate community. With an asterisk, he says, an intimate community is a group of people who know one another well and depend on each other for survival. Most people worked in the family business, the family farm or the family workshop, for example, or they worked in their neighbors' family businesses. The family was also the welfare system, the health system, the education system, the construction industry, the trade union, the pension fund, the insurance company, the radio, the television, the newspapers, the bank, and even the police. When a person fell sick, the family took care of her. When a person grew old, the family supported her, and her children were her pension fund. When a person died, the family took care of the orphans. If a person wanted to build a hut, the family lent a hand. If a person wanted to open a business, the family raised the necessary money. If a person wanted to marry, the family chose or at least vetted the prospective spouse. If conflict arose with a neighbor, the family muscled in. But if a person's illness was too grave for the family to manage, or a new business demanded too large an investment, or the neighborhood quarrel escalated to the point of violence, the local community came to the rescue. And yeah, so definitely I hear all of that and I think, oh, we've lost so much. I'm not saying I'm wrong about that. I just am trying to recognize a tendency to romanticize. He does say life later on another page, life in the bosom of family and community was far from ideal. And I wrote, good to remember this too. I tend to romanticize. I just wish we could keep the good while losing the bad. That seems to be a theme that is coming up for me a lot as I read about all these social upheavals and changes. Exactly that. I wish we could keep the good while we edit out the things that we're realizing aren't so helpful. So he's saying, all of this changed. And in this section that I'm looking at, he uses the word rootless. And I just wrote, it can feel that way when each of us is asked to blaze our own trail. So I do think that is a drawback to the current setup. It's nice that you're not sort of under the thumb of maybe a family or community that you disagree with. It can also feel very untethered to just be set free. Take any direction. Go wherever. Do whatever. You know best. And he sort of gets that. I think I probably have too many notes on this next page for it to be, well, we still have a minute and a half before 20 minutes. So he's saying, over time, states and markets used their growing power to weaken the traditional bonds of family and community. And I just wrote, was it as intentional as he's saying it? The language, the way I'm reacting to it makes it seem intentional, and I'm not sure that there was intentionality. And I've said that in other sections of this book too, maybe even about something yesterday, that, sort of like the idea of, there's a new conspiracy in town, it's consumerism. And I tend to think it's not a conspiracy, it's just an outgrowth of our desires for certain things were usually paired with scarcity, which was a regulator for them. And without the regulator, now we're seeing what that's like. So here he says, you are no longer dependent on your family or your community. And I write, this seems like the key to me. Individualism became an option for the first time. So I tend to resonate much more with, that's a natural outgrowth of a process rather than, whoa, the state came for your families. And then this just made me go oof. If we need around the clock assistance, we can go to the market and hire a nurse, usually some stranger from the other side of the world who takes care of us with the kind of devotion that we can no longer expect from our own children. That doesn't feel good to hear. And I write, he is definitely capturing attention, I feel. Old ways versus new. Perhaps the old ways are recent enough to still be felt in a sense. Yeah, I guess I'm just noting that I do feel like I have a lived experience of that tension, that the old way of being is near enough to me to be somewhat familiar in my immediate experience. And then to feel, that, like people in my family taking care of their aging parents a couple generations back, taking care of their aging parents by having them in their home, and then feeling the tension of feeling like I currently live in a world where that certainly still happens, but then you also have this other option of hiring that out. So I feel like I have a very lived tension. Add that note. Or a very lived experience of this tension. Okay, so that takes us to 21 minutes. So I will stop there. Oh, maybe I'll just say this. But the liberation of the individual comes at a cost. Many of us now bewail the loss of strong families and communities. Later it says, for it breaches countless generations of human social arrangements. Millions of years of evolution have designed us to live and think as community members. Within a mere 2 centuries, we have become alienated individuals. Nothing testifies better to the awesome power of culture. So there we have our review for today. How many pages? Gosh, it's just hard to get through. Okay, that at least got us through 10 pages. I think, it just may take some time to review. Or, I don't know, maybe I'll just do a longer review. Sometimes I'm not quite sure what people want in the background. If you're a study with me type viewer, then I'm sensitive to people wanting silence, although of course you can always mute me. But if you're like, have someone on in the background while I put the dishes away, you might kind of like the chatter. So, I don't know. Anyway, I'll reset the timer and we can get started. And good luck to you on whatever you're working on. Anyone else have this problem with hot chocolate? It's like you stir it and it dissolves, but then some of it still manages to settle to the bottom again. Then you get to the bottom of the cup and it's like, oh, all the flavor was there. I'm going to do a mid-cup stir. there's a sleepy Dottie. She was asleep upstairs. Don't leave us. Show us your pretty spotted face. Yeah, you haven't been on here in a while. Yeah. Yeah. She was asleep upstairs, as any good cat would be. Yeah, pretty kitty girl. She, of course, loves her naps in the sunshine. Okay, okay, just let me move the keyboard. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, okay, okay. Don't lick my mug. It's not for you. Bye. So there you go. There's a kitty sighting. Yes, kitty? She's sitting just behind my computer here. We'll see if she makes another appearance there. There's a pathway for you, kitty. Are you gonna come back? Maybe? finished it. What a book. What a book. Whoa, I'm so sorry if that was so loud. Ah. What happened? Oopsie. Alrighty, I see that our time is up, so that is our hour for today. I hope you are happy with how you spent your time, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Bye.